Meanwhile, President Trump going on offense, slamming his former attorney this morning after Michael Cohen postponed his congressional testimony because of threats, he says, to his family. The president tweeting this morning, quote, "So interesting that bad lawyer Michael Cohen, who sadly will not be testifying before Congress, is using the lawyer of crooked Hillary Clinton to represent him. Gee, how did that happen?" Remember July 4th weekend when crooked Hillary went before FBI and wasn't sworn in? No tape, nothing. Congressman Jim Jordan is ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. He joins us now. Congressman, thank you for coming on this morning. So
you bet, Senator.
That was the president's reaction to this, the postponement of this hearing. What's yours?
Well, if you look at the statement Mr. Davis, Mr. Cummings made, they talked about the threats, but then they also talked about ongoing investigations. My guess is it had a lot more to do, Michael Cohen's postponement had a lot more to do with that second part, the ongoing investigation aspect of this. Mr. Davis, when he talked to our attorneys on the committee, he told them he didn't check with the special counsel. He didn't check with the Southern District of New York. He didn't check with the Attorney General in the state of New York. He just worked this out with Cummings and got Cohen to come for this scheduled hearing. Now they're postponing it. My guess is that's because they've heard from the folks who have these ongoing investigations.
It's been indefinitely postponed. We don't know whether there will be any sort of subpoena type action, but I can tell you this was written in the New York Times this morning, talking about this putting Democrats in an awkward position. They write, quote, "They must decide whether to force Mr. Cohen to testify despite his concerns about security or walk away altogether from a hearing that they held out as the first marquee moment in their plan to showcase their aggressive oversight of Mr. Trump and his administration." Congressman.
I think that's exactly right. I think a couple things are in play, because if they do subpoena him, and they may, what will he answer? Well, because when you're subpoenaed, do you take the fifth? Do you answer something? How does that all work out? I think that's a concern that they have to deal with. Second is this. Maybe they got finally sensitive to this fact that the first big hearing they were doing, they were bringing a guy in to testify in front of Congress who in 5 weeks is going to prison for lying to Congress. Maybe at some point they actually understood, well, that may not be the best thing to do. So I don't know what Mr. Cummings is going to do. I don't know how this is going to work out. All I know is we're focused on getting the truth out. And if Mr. Cohen comes, we're going to be prepared to ask him the questions that we think the American people deserve answers to.
And, of course, we're talking about the very powerful House Oversight Committee, and there has been some progressives that have joined this committee, and I just wonder if you can sort of tell us what picture this paints for the next couple of years. Throw up on the screen there. We've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez named to the House Oversight Committee, Congresswoman Tlaib, who has obviously been in the news quite a bit lately, added to that committee. What overall does this mean for investigations and more going forward?
Yeah, Senator, I mean, we'll see. This is a call for Speaker Pelosi and Chairman Cummings. They can put on the committee whoever they want. We welcome them to the committee. Again, as I said before, our focus is the truth. I think in the past I've been able to work sometimes with folks on the liberal side of the spectrum. There's obviously, a big difference between where the Freedom Caucus is and where the Progressive Caucus is. But typically on civil liberty type issues, we found common ground. We have a bill right now. Jamie Raskin, a member of the Progressive Caucus, liberal member from Maryland, and I have co-sponsored and worked on this legislation that would protect people like you, people in the press. When the FBI comes kicking on your door wanting you to divulge confidential sources, you shouldn't have to do that. It's called the First Amendment. It's called freedom of the press. And so on those type of issues, we can maybe come together and work on it, but obviously there's a big difference between where the progressives are and where the Freedom Caucus is.
Meanwhile, the committee has already launched a new probe. It happened actually in during this program yesterday that we learned about this, into alleged grave breaches of national security in the security clearance process with the White House and the Trump transition team. Is this a sign that this committee is really going to ramp up Trump-focused investigations?
Yeah, as if we needed another sign. I mean, the Democrats are completely focused on halting and stopping the Trump administration, and not instead where I think they should be focused, which is on helping the country. I mean, think about the very first day. The first day of Congress, Brad Sherman introduces articles of impeachment. Later that same day, not even 24 hours on the job, we had the Congresswoman say the disgraceful things she said about the president. Then we have Nancy Pelosi, who will not even negotiate with the president on this whole immigration border security wall concern that we have right now. And, of course, top it all off with Nancy Pelosi doesn't invite the commander-in-chief to give the State of the Union address. They are completely focused on stopping the president and not on helping the country. The Oversight Committee, I think, is just continuing that trend, which I think hurts the nation. But they're gonna do all these investigations. Again, our focus is going to be getting the truth to the American people, and that's what we'll stay solely focused on.
And of course, this particular investigation is seeking information on clearance issues involving a number of former but also current Trump administration officials. The reason why we were showing Jared Kushner there for a bit, because he is named specifically in this.
Again, this is how the Democrats are going to operate. The commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, has a right to have the people around him who he thinks is going to give him the insight and advice he needs. Let's work through this security clearance process. I think the administration has done that, but understand they are just so focused on stopping the president and not on helping the country. I think we're going to continue to see this. I hope that changes, but it certainly doesn't look like it's going to.
Congressman, I've got to leave it there. Just a couple seconds left. How does this shutdown story end? Couple votes taken up today.
If Nancy Pelosi would get focused on helping the country, we could get a solution. The president's offered one over the weekend. Let's sit down and actually negotiate and not play these games of not inviting the president to the State of the Union. Let's actually sit down and figure out how we can help the country and get a border security wall built.
Congressman Jim Jordan, on a very busy morning, we thank you.
President Trump continuing to counterpunch Nancy Pelosi with a new Twitter taunt as the shutdown fight gets personal. After grounding her military aircraft yesterday, the president slamming the House Speaker for planning to go on an overseas trip during the government shutdown. And Pelosi's office is responding by accusing the White House of leaking information about plans to fly commercial, claiming it created a security risk that caused the trip to be stopped. The White House is pushing back, though, calling the charge, quote, asinine and a flat-out lie. Here's Pelosi earlier.
That was very irresponsible on the part of the president. We'll go again. We'll go another time. This would have been my 9th trip.
Do you view this as retaliation for your letter about the State of the Union?
I would hope not. I don't think the president would be that petty, do you?
Sarah Sanders firing back at Pelosi over the allegations, saying it's outrageous to claim the president would put lives in jeopardy. Meanwhile, it's a tale of two shutdown stunts for the media. Watch as Pelosi gets praised for trying to delay the State of the Union, while Trump gets trashed for axing her foreign trip.
Speaker Pelosi flexing her constitutional muscle.
The president has responded in sort of a childish way, is the only way to describe it.
This bold power play by Speaker Pelosi.
This is a sort of a classic example of Trump kind of overreacting.
She's got a PhD in needling President Trump.
What Trump has done today, tactically inept, strategically nitwitted.
I mean, this is political genius.
The only phrase that comes to mind is nanny, nanny, boo-boo.
This is a case study in media bias, Dana.
It's a pretty good example. It is a pretty good example. And when he was quiet for the day, remember, and she got all that press for a whole day, and the timing of the letter that your trip is canceled coming a half an hour before they're to leave while they're on the bus, that was gold.
Perfectly executed.
Like really gold. And so, I mean, I remember I did my sister test,
right,
and she was like, oh, both of them, Trump, Pelosi, tired of it. That might be how a lot of people feel, but the media can't do that. I mean, come on. And then also when Pelosi says, oh, I don't think he would be that petty. It's like when in the South when you say bless their heart.
That's right.
A little bit like that.
Bless your heart, Greg.
Yeah, I think it could have been Trump. It could have been worse. I mean, Trump canceling the trip is nice. Imagine if he had allowed them to get on the plane and then he waited until they were in the air and then rerouted it so it flew in circles around the U.S. for like 11 hours. I don't know how long the trip is. But imagine if he let him fly in the air for 11 hours, right? And then he goes, okay, let him land in D.C. And then they come back, they land in D.C., they're all tired, the ambience wearing off, they had a few drinks, they get out and like Nancy's like, wow, I didn't know Brussels had a White House. This is amazing. So I think that he actually did them a favor. Jim Acosta calling anyone childlike, he's basically the spokesperson for Gerber baby food. I think the whole idea of calling each other childish doesn't work anymore. No. It doesn't work because everybody is a child now. We're allowed. We live in a time where it's tit for tat, so that's okay. There's a really positive thing that's going to happen. I've said it yesterday. Nancy handed him the golden key. Get out of the State of the Union. Mm-hmm. It's boring. Think of it as State of the Union unplugged. Go back to its roots.
Acoustic.
An acoustic State of the Union. The People's State of the Union. You send a letter, then you have a rally. Everybody wins, and we stay here in New York. We don't have to take the train and sit on the Acela and listen to that bubble of bourgeois. I don't even know what I said.
It's all about travel anxiety.
I don't want to go anywhere.
All right, this is one. This is Newt Gingrich talking about picking a fight with the president, and then you can react.
I don't know anybody who is more predictable at counterpunching. You hit Donald Trump, he picks up a large log, slams you across the head, and says, see, you made me irritated. I mean, she handed him a huge softball and said, please knock it out of the park. I guarantee you he's going to spend part of every day from here on out finding a way to cause her pain.
So the president's plotting in the Oval Office. How else can I cause Pelosi pain?
I think this delights you by the look on your face, Jesse. But I think he's causing himself a great deal of pain. I mean, I was just looking at the polls today, and it's pretty clear. All the polls indicate that majorities blame the president for what's going on, and people don't like the idea of shutdown, don't think it's a good idea to shut down the government as a leverage point over building the wall that we know Mexico was going to pay for. And, you know, to me, they think, you know, we should get a deal. We should be able to reach a deal. So, you know, to Dana's sister's point, it'd be nice if people sat down and really thought about this and really were able to negotiate.
Do you think
but no, let me finish. But here you have a situation where you had Republicans and Democrats make a deal. McConnell said, here's a deal. It was the president who shut down the government. So now you have Vice President Pence, Jared Kushner meeting with Mitch McConnell. They're trying to figure out some way to help the president save face, because that's all this is about. And when he does something, and I think that Pelosi was very clear, and I think the State Department, you know, when they had to say, you know, you can't go, it's very clear. He did talk about the commercial itinerary in a way that would have endangered her life and the life of everyone on there. But guess what? In the conservative media bubble, you get the kind of playground tit for tat. Oh, Adam Schiff was on. Remember Adam Schiff, the one that the president misspells his name with the T's. It's unbelievable that we are at this juvenile level. But I think the American people from the polls say enough of this playground behavior. It's not good. It's not good governance, and it's not who we are.
Well, to that one, I would say Nancy started it. How's that for play?
Yes.
Dr. Nicole Sapphire, Juan says right now the polls indicate that everybody blames the president for the shutdown. If the president were to cut a deal, get the wall, and reopen the government, would the American people give him credit for ending the shutdown, and his base would be very ecstatic about the wall funding?
Yes. Well, of course. His base would be very happy, but I'm sure that the other side, who never supports him, would come up with something else, and he would not get credit for that.
But there's more of an upside for the president here.
Right. I do agree. I think that they really need to hone in. You know, he has compromised. He's compromised on the cost of the border wall. He's gone from $21 billion down to $5.7. He's compromised on DACA. I mean, these are things that happen with his campaign. You know, he's doing what he said in his campaign. He lowered corporate tax. He bombed ISIS. He's bringing the troops home. He has to do the wall. He has to do something here. If he foregoes the wall, he's going to lose his base, and the Republicans are really going to suffer from this. Now, this tit for tat, and it really is nanny, nanny, boo-boo, but it's on both sides, and it just is. I mean, Pelosi's in Hawaii. She comes back, and she says she's going to pull the reins on the SOTU, which, okay. And then he cancels her trip. I mean, it is a back and forth. I want to see them back in the White House, get some of their cronies, get in the Oval Office, lock themselves in, and hash out a deal. Like, there's no, okay, let's shake hands and let's move on with the day. No, you stay in that office until you figured it out, because you have 800,000 people not getting paid. And when you're praising the unemployment rate, how it keeps going down, but now all of a sudden we have employed individuals not getting paid. They're needing GoFundMe accounts. They're having to file for unemployment. This isn't right.
So, Doc, you know, I just want to point out that you just said this is all about the president's wanting to make a political point. It's not about border security.
This is what he got elected to do by the American people, whether you agree with it or not. He got elected saying he was doing a wall.
You're wrong. He got elected saying Mexico would pay for this wall. No, we're not near that. And so you have him.
Well, a lot of people believe that the new NAFTA deal gets Mexico to pay for it. But
here's the thing. No, let me finish this point. This is important. You have now Gary Cohn, the president's economic advisor.
I thought this was friction-free Friday.
Okay, so let me say this.
We always cut him off.
The Federal Reserve Bank chair here in New York saying what's going on right now is slowing U.S. economic growth. The president lets Mrs. Trump fly last night. He won't let Pelosi fly.
And Melania is not negotiating. Melania is not negotiating.
I thought the principle was in the letter.
In the Oval Office. We don't need her.
Yeah, we don't need her. But the principle in the letter was
it would be interesting to see an actual specific plan by the Democrats, because now we have them on record saying that they're for enhanced border security. They actually say it now, even though their leader said it was immoral. Remember, walls were immoral, and now you have them backtracking and say, "But wait a minute, it's moral." So what I would like to, would be really need to see a plan that actually shows a border without a wall. I would like to see that, because the thing is, if you want a deal, you're going to have to create money for enhanced border, right? That's what it'd be. So the Democrats have to come up with a specific deal, right, with this money that doesn't have any wall. I would like to see that. Do you think that's possible? I would like to. No. One, you believe that you can do it without a wall? Then you should write it down right now. I want to see you draw it out.
I don't think this is so hard.
Well, it's impossible.
Jesse was making fun of me yesterday for going through the steps. You know, the added funding in terms of security personnel, the drones,
but no wall.
Yeah, you don't need it.
It's not even because it's all the parts of it that have walls.
Your favorite radio host Howard Stern said, "Doesn't work."
Where'd you hear that?
From you.
There you go. At least we know Ron's listening to us.
Yeah.
All right, only when he wants to hear what he wants.